Hello and welcome to the Battle Line Podcast, where we have conversations on that collision of space between community, faith, and culture. I'm one of your hosts, Matt Satterley, and here with me today in the room is the Director of Publications for all things Salvation Army, Major M-A-J-O-R, Jamie Satterley. Jamie, how are you doing today?
I am only okay today, but it's all right. It'll get better. Life's crazy.
It is a rainy day. It's a rainy, windy day here in Alexandria. The weather has changed, and it is affecting moods all around. We also have with us our co-host, our producer, the one who makes this whole thing work, the national, I'm just making up a title, Director of Multimedia Experiences, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, how are you doing today?
I am so super lovely. How are you?
Doing great. Doing great. It may be, what's the song? It may be winter outside, but it's summertime in my heart.
That's a song?
I don't know. I think
Did you just make it up?
Maybe.
Get in the studio.
It's summertime in my heart. There it is. I remember it from training. Yep.
Oh, you're right. I do remember that song now. Though it's winter, it is summer in my heart. Yep.
Yep, there it is. All right, Jamie, fire us off, please. What are we talking about today?
I don't even know anymore. Listen, today we have an exciting celebration. We are celebrating the Battle Line's first birthday.
Hey, reggae horn.
That's right. Party. We need little party poppers or something. Yep. So we are excited. It's crazy to me that it's been a whole year. It doesn't feel like it's been a year. This year I feel like has just flown by. But we are happy to have reached this milestone. So we thought it would be fun to kind of go through some other birthdays throughout Salvation Army history, kind of talk about what was happening in the world at the time that they were born. So it'll kind of be a fun game you can play along. Matt is torturing us today with trying to guess when events occurred, which is not my forte. Let me just say that right out the box.
Welcome to
not
history.
My thing.
Welcome to history class today, children. So yes, as Major Jamie read, here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to give you a Salvation Army persona. You guys are going to try to guess what year they were born in. Folks at home, yell into your radio. We can hear you. And then what we'll do is we'll talk about some of the other things that were happening in the world at that time and have some serious faith conversations about that too. All right. Clear as mud. Awesome. Here we go. The first one. William and Catherine Booth were born in the same year. Okay. William and Catherine Booth were born in the same year. Anybody want to take a guess? I know this is hard. You can't get the exact year. So let's just try to say, can you get it within the span of 10 years? I'll give you a decade either direction.
All okay. Right. I'm trying to do the maths because I know when he died. So I'm like, let me roll it back. And
when did he die?
Knowing when the Salvation Army started, 1865. So he had to be at least 20 years old when that happened, right? I'm going to say...
I like this. I like the logic you're going here.
1832.
Okay, good guess. Good guess. Elizabeth, where you want to go?
I'm going to go 1843.
Okay, good job. Major Jamie gets close. 1829.
Oh, so close.
9. Very good. So William Booth and Catherine Booth were both born the same year that the typewriter was invented. For those Gen Z out there who have no idea what a typewriter
What's
is.
What's a typewriter?
It's like a keyboard and a printer in one with no monitor. All right. William and Catherine Booth, they would be celebrating a 192-year birthday this month, if they were still with us, if they weren't promoted to glory, but good for them. Major Jamie, quick follow-up question. How many countries was the Salvation Army in 1829?
None. In 1829, it was in none countries. They were just born.
You got me. I tried to trick you. So here's some of the things that were happening in 1829, the same year that William and Catherine Booth were born. Andrew Jackson became president of the United States. By the way, if you've never read what happened after Andrew Jackson's inaugural, when he was called the people's president at the time and they all ran into the White House and made a mess of it, you need to check that out. Andrew Jackson, read about that. Scotland Yard was formed. The original cop drama was formed in 1829. And also, one of the big things that
That
was
was the
going on.
precursor to Paw Patrol.
That's nice. This is tip top governor, something like that. Now that I offended
Well, now
all of
you just
England.
offended. Half our listeners.
England's not going to sponsor the show. So, all right. What was going on in America, in the United States in 1829 was the second Great Awakening was happening. That was like the second, the term we use for like revival that was going on. It was spreading out throughout the United States during that time. 1829 just got swept up into that. So let's talk a bit about that little bit for a second. We've heard a lot of people say they want revival in the world today. What is that? And is it possible for that to happen again? Anybody?
Oh, I think it's definitely possible. But it's also one of those things that is not entirely man-made, right? That's God moving in people's hearts. And people have to respond. Certainly man has a role to play in that. But I don't think it's something that we can manufacture.
Sure. Growing up, I always thought I didn't know I'm a Salvation Army kid. I thought revivals were always something that was scheduled, right? That was one. Yeah. That was one.
It's every year you got to have one.
1 week a year you schedule a revival. So when people were saying, "Oh, I hope revival breaks out," I was like, "Oh, you just schedule those, don't you?"
That's right. You put it on the calendar. It has to break out.
That's what I thought. I thought we did. Mark Sayers is a good author that I've been trying to read. I'm very slowly reading his book, Reappearing Church, but it talks about revival and what's revivals needed in the Western civilization. But he says this: personal renewal leads to corporate change. Personal renewal leads to corporate change, which I think all of us are praying for renewal. What in the world? Renewal.
That's what happens when you are renewed and revived.
That's a cool word I just invented right there. It's
That's
a
right.
Gen Z word.
New theology term over here.
Renewal and revival.
You heard it here first.
But all that to say, like we clamor all the time. We cry out for revival, and I would say first, right? We need to check yourself. Right? Check yourself. Humility has to come. There has to be a repentance of sin before any revival breaks out, and that's what we should be praying for that. So,
yeah, it's interesting to me too. We do call it revival because that's just like the historical term, what we say when we have special meetings. But it's funny to me that like we've scheduled a revival this week. We're praying for revival, and I'm like, okay, well this is our one opportunity this year. If it doesn't happen this year, put it on the calendar for next year. Like, no, God, oftentimes I think too, it happens when you least expect it, right? It's not like we're scheduling this. We're like, okay, I'm putting this on the calendar, God, so now the rest is up to you. Like, no, it's when we're living out, our everyday life, doing the things that, like you said, to be renewed, to grow in Him. And then, it kind of happens through the moving of His Spirit, not because we put it on a calendar. But I understand, like, that's just tradition, what we call it.
Yep. All right, let's move on to our second Salvation Army persona, General. Put some respect on his name. I guess I should have said General William Booth too. He's cool with it. He's cool. Him and I, we're cool.
Hey, you want to know a fun fact? Something I learned. I probably should have known this because we never say it, but do you know that Catherine Booth, despite being the co-founder of the Salvation Army, never had an official rank?
I did know that.
Well,
we should
erase my fun fact then.
Let's give her. We'll just give her one. Give her one.
She should be general. I know you can only have one at a time. Co-general. General in my heart.
Co-general?
General in my heart, Catherine Booth. Because Catherine Booth, she's out there doing the stuff. She was the preacher. She did a lot of the preaching. And a lot of times when he preached, she was writing his material. He was kind of the visionary, like casting vision, having the ideas like this. And she was kind of the one like with the details, going out there preaching. It was just as much Catherine as it was William, but
I feel like Catherine Booth would be doing what Major Jamie does for me in editing my emails. Before I send an email, Catherine Booth would
like,
probably, if William
Billy,
Booth had
you can't say that.
Yeah, she'd be like, you can't say that. You can't say that. All right. So we move to General Bramwell Booth, the son of William and Catherine Booth, one of many. All right. What year was he born? Take a guess. Again, they
were born in
1829. When was Bramwell Booth born?
18.
Correct. You've got the right century.
54.
Ooh, such a great guess. So close. Elizabeth, what do you think?
1852?
1856. If Bramwell Booth was alive with us today, he would be 165 years old. Do you know what was invented in 1856? The first egg
Bramwell
beater.
Booth. Sorry, what?
Oh, you got me good. You got me good.
Sorry, I interrupted you. What was invented in 1856 besides Bramwell
The
Booth?
egg beater with moving. The egg beater with moving parts was invented in 1856.
Oh, that's a little thing like you would hold it at the top right, and it had like the little roto wheel.
The thing you've seen
You
on the
can't see
wall
my
at Cracker
motions,
Barrel.
but I'm over here doing the motions. Yeah.
Big Ben is the name of the bell inside the tower, right? In London, we always look at the clock and say, that's Big Ben. It's actually the name of the bell inside. And Big Ben, the bell, was actually cast in 1856. All right. South Carolina senator named Brooks. This was when the Civil War was kind of getting a little bit not started, but like it's still a couple of years off. But like South Carolina Senator Brooks actually caned, like whipped a Massachusetts senator, Sumner, back then. So read about that. That's funny. You think our politics are crazy now after all that happened. Wait till you see have senators whipping each other with wood canes in 1856. And finally, here's the last one. Interesting fact I learned about in 1856. Christmas was finally made legal.
Did you say finally?
Listen, Renival and finally. Christmas was finally legal to celebrate in New England. Elizabeth, get your people. After Christmas being banned in New England for 200 years, because the Puritans thought that it was a sinner's holiday, that it was a pagan holiday, and so Christmas was finally legal to celebrate after 200 years in 1856. So, Elizabeth, what do you have to say for your people?
My people could celebrate.
That's right.
Party hard.
Freedom.
Freedom.
How about we move to Samuel Logan Brangle, the Holiness Rider.
Oh, man.
Samuel Logan Brangle. What year do you think Samuel Logan Brangle was born? I'll give you a hint. He is younger than Bramwell Booth. Younger than Bramwell Booth.
Okay. 1862.
Close. All right, Elizabeth.
Wait, didn't we determine he was younger or older
Yes,
than
he's
the last
younger than
guy?
Bramwell Booth.
Oh, he's younger. Wow.
Younger.
I was going the wrong way with that. Okay. Let's go 1874.
1860. 1860. Very good.
One of these times I'm going to get it.
Samuel Logan Brangle would be 161 today if he was hanging out with us. Major Jamie, how many countries was the Salvation Army in 1860?
None countries.
One of these times I'm going to get you. All right. So what was going on in the time in the world when Samuel Logan Brangle was invented, as Jamie said earlier? The vacuum cleaner was invented.
Hey!
Shout out to the vacuum cleaners. The American Civil War starts. For those of you who are in history class, Abraham Lincoln is elected, of course. And I found out this little fun fact. In 1860, we had the longest boxing match in English history. One boxing match went 2.5 hours, 42 rounds of boxing.
Listen, I feel like I would have just been like, I'm just going to lay down because I'm really tired of getting hit in the face.
So I'm going to throw this one to you, Jamie. This one's coming to you. You ready? This was also 1860 was the first time that Catherine Booth, who you just shouted out there, preached publicly. First time she preached publicly was in 1860. So let's talk about women preaching in the Salvation Army today.
Oh, yes, let's.
Go for it. The mic is yours.
No, I just think, this is such a tough thing because you think the temptation is to think it's 2021. Why are we still talking about this? Women can vote. Women can work. Women have rights to education. Oh, well, let's just remember, though, that just because we have the rights here doesn't mean we have the rights everywhere. There are lots of places in the world today where girls do not have equal access to education. They do not have equal access to the workforce, freedom of choice. And when I say freedom of choice, I'm talking about things like marriage, like, what I'm going to wear today, all those kind of things.
Ooh, good detail.
Even here, I mean, even around the world today, this is not women having the ability to preach is not a thing in every denomination. There are some which not only encourage, not only allow, but empower their women that sounds like such a terrible term, but allow women to be teachers and preachers and hold, every level of office within the church. That's not the case in every denomination across the world, even across America. There are some who do not hold that theological belief that women should be able to teach and preach. But the Salvation Army has been doing it from the very beginning. Like we just heard, Catherine Booth, even before the Salvation Army was started, Catherine Booth was out there doing her thing, teaching, preaching, getting the word of God out there as she should.
And I would say the same thing for, if I can speak to like husbands out there, I would say that as a thing, especially in the Salvation Army, male ego is something that I try to explain to Major Jamie quite a lot. But it's one of those things that needs to be...
Like mansplaining? Just kidding. Keep going. Sorry.
Man, I was going to make a great spiritual point.
I'm sorry.
We will have no renewal in here today.
That's right. I take it back.
I was just going to say, dudes, it's like one of those things as a husband, with like, there's just very much a thing that needs to be surrendered to Jesus too. We say, I surrender all. And that ego that we have, where if like our wife was placed in a leadership position higher than us, some of you guys are like, oh yeah, I'm all for this as long as it's other people. But my wife, listen, that's one of those things that needs to be surrendered at the cross for sure. All right. We say we give all. That's one of those things we need to give all. All right. So check that ego, dudes. And by that, I'm talking to myself, looking at myself in the video camera right now, saying the very same thing. All right. All right. Speaking of empowered women, let's move on to General Evangeline Booth. Woo.
Oh, yeah.
Fire. That's a fire pistol right there. What year do you think she was born in? She's younger.
Okay. She's younger than Bramwell.
Definitely.
Younger than Brangle.
Yes.
The question was she born before or after the founding of the Salvation Army?
What if I tell you it was the same year?
Oh, then I know it. 1865.
That's right. Evangeline Booth was born. Sorry, Elizabeth, I didn't give you a chance to, but you knew it already.
Duh. Yeah.
All right. So Evangeline Booth was born in 1865. She's the same age as the Salvation Army. Evangeline would be 156 this year. So happy birthday, Salvation Army, 156 years old. Do you know that in 1865, do you know what was invented? This blew my mind. The cowboy hat.
What a huge year.
The cowboy hat.
That seems late.
Well, we think Wild Wild West was the 1880s, right? Around that time. So yeah, it makes sense. The modern cowboy hat that we know was invented in 1865. Major Jamie, how many countries was the Salvation Army in 1865?
Well, technically the Salvation Army was still in none countries, but the Christian mission would have been in one. England.
Try to history explain me. All right, good. Yes, what was also going on in the world in 1865, the American Civil War ends, Lincoln is assassinated. And what we have here is both, this is something to talk about, because this is an interesting thing that happened in the United States history in 1865. You have Americans killing each other in the Civil War, but both of them said that God is on our side. Right, like the northern, the federal side of this said, God is for us. Rebels will be punished and all these things. But then the Southern, the Confederacy as well, was saying God's on our side. So here's my question to you both. Do you think that God, in those instances, does God take sides? Does God want one football team to win over another? Does God want one Atlanta Braves team to win a World Series over somebody else? What do you think?
Well, the Houston Astros are filthy cheaters, which I do not feel like is supported by God. So I'm going to say that, yes, he would like the Atlanta Braves
spicy take
to win. No, I don't think God really cares.
Well, we've lost all of our Houston listeners.
Yeah. I don't think that God really cares about all that. I mean, he cares about what's important to us, but I'm on this side. Somebody else might be rooting for that team. We're both equally important in God's eyes.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Move into the modern era. General Eva Burroughs, our second female general. What year do you think General Eva Burroughs? Now, I will give you a hint. She just passed away pretty recently, within the last couple of years.
I remember her ish.
Okay.
I mean, I was really young.
I shook her hand. I met her once and shook her hand. So.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So she has got to be similarly aged to our grandparents. So I am going to say 1928.
Oh, 1 year off. All right, Elizabeth, you want to take a guess?
Oh, this is huge.
Up or down? Up or down?
1927.
1929.
We always choose to go the wrong way.
Oh my gosh. I hate multiple choice.
1929 was a huge year in the Salvation Army. If you've read the book, 1929. Sunglasses were invented in 1929.
Hey.
Oh, Eva Burroughs.
I would sure like a pair of sunglasses.
Eva Burroughs would have been 92 years old this year. All right.
Elizabeth, Matt lost my sunglasses in the lake this summer.
Major Matt. What are you doing?
We jumped off the party barge and I let them go by accident. But listen,
I love the party barge.
That's not what we're here to talk about today.
There's a fish swimming around Lake Dale Hollow right now that looks real cool.
Real slick.
In 1929, we got the first Salvation Army High Council. The first time ever. Mother Teresa started her work in India in 1929. We also have the first Oscars ever in 1929. So what was going on in the church in the United States in 1929 was the Great Depression was making its way through the United States. And because of that, budgets were cut in churches, ministers were dismissed, were let go, and churches' memberships declined and churches had to close. All right. So that doesn't seem to sometime, too different from what we're facing today. What do you think?
I concur. I'm sorry. My mind was wandering.
Still on the sunglasses.
Yes.
I think it is like I don't like that defeated attitude. I think we sometimes have too many Christians walking around already with we're defeated attitude. We're never gonna get back to what we were, which is not the best mindset anyway. But
no, we don't. That's right. We don't always want to be what we were.
Yeah, to walk
Isn't
around.
That the whole point of growing in Jesus is to not be what we were.
Let's
move forward.
Yeah, walking
the best
around
days are ahead.
That's good. Walking around defeated is just, not a great attitude to have, especially for sure. All right, General Paul Rader. General Paul Rader. When was General Paul Rader born?
Oh,
I will give you a hint.
You're making me do the maths.
His niece works in this office right behind me. All right.
No way.
Yes way.
Yeah, Carolyn Bailey is his niece. Okay, what year is
bananas.
It's 2021.
He is still alive. He is the general that was in line of succession. I don't know the best phrase for that. He's the last general who is still living. What's the word I'm trying to say here?
Yes, he's the oldest still living general.
But not the oldest in age. Oldest in the line of succession.
In the order that he was the general.
Yes.
That's really confusing.
Also before I'll give you the fun facts. Let's hear that guess. All right. When was Paul Rader?
1935.
1 year off. All right. Here we go, Elizabeth. Up or down?
I'm going to be consistent. 1934.
1934.
Yay.
General Paul Rader was born.
Fun story. We were talking through this with our kids, and Lillian Googled it. She didn't tell me any hints, which is why I was wrong. Because I told her, don't give me hints, Lily, but she wanted to know. And so she saw the year on the phone, and then she showed it to her sister, who said, is this older or younger than Nana? To which I said, don't tell Nana. So, Mom, if you're listening, so sorry. I corrected them and told them Nana is the youngest of the grandparents, and she's way younger than General Rader.
I love the youth.
General Paul Rader was born in 1934. He's 87, and he's still with us. In 1934, the modern trampoline was invented in 1934.
Wait, what's the modern trampoline?
I love trampolines.
What was before the modern trampoline?
The prehistoric trampoline. There will be no further. Please don't question. There will be no further questions received. Major Jamie, since you've got this, how many countries was the Salvation Army in 1934?
Oh, I don't know.
Don't you look? I see you picked up that phone.
I sure did.
Take a guess. Take a guess. Take a guess. Somebody's holding a Nerf gun at you and demands to know the answer. Take a guess.
No, I will not take a guess. Hold on, I'm thinking.
81.
81. Oh,
the
that's
Salvation
a lot.
Army was in 81 countries by 1934. Evangeline Booth was elected general that year as well. A little prison called Alcatraz opened up for the first time in 1934 as well. And Bonnie and Clyde were killed that year as well. Here's something that was going on in world history that we could just talk about a little bit, because I think we need to have that boldness again in our world today. Confessing Church was formed in 1934. This was the group of churches that stood against the Nazi regime that was trying to unify all the Protestant churches in Germany to the Nazi party. And the Confessing Church, Dietrich Bonhoeffer was one of the founders of this, stood against them. So can we talk about this? Like, what do you think about churches standing against political parties, standing against governments? What's your thoughts on this?
I think that the Christian should always stand against injustice and what's wrong. If that is the government, then okay.
Yeah,
I think wrong is wrong no matter who's doing the wrong.
And it's a dangerous position. I mean, look what happened to Dietrich Bonhoeffer in the Confession Church. I mean, it's a dangerous position to be in when churches say no to this. I think in our country today, I think we do see some churches who stand up and say no, but also they could be standing up. Yeah, there's some churches who. Go ahead, finish your thought.
No, I'm just saying. I think that we have to be careful. It's a dicey situation. There's a lot of nuance here, right?
Yeah.
There's a big difference between standing up against genocide and standing up against some foolish things that we choose to get wrapped up in.
Right.
So yes, like if things that we know to be wrong are worth taking a stand against. No, I think the part of the problem is today that the church has gotten very wrapped up in politics. And sometimes those things are more about allegiance to a party than they are about whether the politics of that party are right or wrong. And so then it also is very easy for us to use God's word to justify whatever we want to believe. Anything can be taken out of context and be twisted to mean what you want it to mean. So I think we have to be very careful about how we say this, that yes. But I think that there are things that are just flat out wrong, and the church should be standing against it. Genocide is one of those things. Racism is one of those things.
I think this goes back to our conversation we were talking about with Evangeline Booth in 1865 about how in the Civil War, both sides claimed that God was on their side. I think it's the exact same conversation here, where we have to be careful that we say God is on our side, right? Or God is on our side. He's not for them. He's not on the other people's side. And we see that a little bit. And unfortunately, in our politics today, there are people who say God is with us in this, and there are people who say, no, God is with us in this. Again, God will not be used to be a means, just to be a means of an end for a worldly purpose. All right.
No, I think that there are policies on both sides that probably line up with what God's heart is, and there are policies on both sides that don't. So to claim that one or the other has the equal backing of God is just not correct.
I think we need to have the courage today to be willing to be able to stand up and say no. I mean, as Dietrich Bonhoeffer in the Confessing Church said, no, you're not going to form all of the Protestant churches in Germany into a Nazi regime. We're gonna stand up against that. We need that boldness again in our world today, for sure. All right, let's move on to our current general, General Brian Peddle. He may be listening, so be careful when you say his age. So.
Okay, I am imagining that General Peddle is similarly aged to our parents.
You would be correct in that thinking.
And he's been the general for a couple of years. I don't know his exact age, but I would imagine that he's probably approaching retirement age, as both of sets of our parents are approaching retirement age. Sorry, mom and dad, mom, pop. I am going to guess 1957.
She nailed it, Elizabeth. Sorry, I can't come to you.
gosh.
She got it exactly. General Brian Peddle was born in 1957. He's 64. Sorry, General, to tell everybody your age. So he was born.
That's the same year. Oh, never mind. I shouldn't.
Okay.
That's the same year your dad was born.
We're putting family business all out here today. He was born the same year that the sugar packet was invented.
What a year.
What a year. Also, a little thing called bubble wrap was invented in 1957. The Salvation Army was in 89 countries in 1957. And The Cat in the Hat by Dr. Seuss was published in 1957. Also, we have Billy Graham's very first crusade. His very first crusade. So we talked about revival earlier, Major Jamie. What do you think about crusades? Are they still relevant in our world today? Not trying to go back and get Jerusalem with knights and stuff.
Yeah,
not those kind of crusades.
But
Yes.
like,
revival crusades.
yeah.
I shouldn't say
sure,
revival.
I don't think
Sorry,
there's
just
anything-
crusades.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it, and we just see them differently now, right? I mean, like you still have when Billy Graham had a crusade, he had music, he preached. We still have those things. We just call them different stuff. We still have, different events, Catalyst Conference, Orange Conference, all the IF gatherings where it's the same thing. It's teaching and music. We still do it. It's still valuable. If it's helping people grow closer to the Lord, sure, why not?
Cool. I think, yeah, that's great. I also think we talk a lot about this is that as the church, it's okay to think of things as growing smaller, growing smaller, not like deteriorating, but you can grow small, like relationships, having relationships with the people in your core. A discipleship relationship is just as important as a crusade with 10,000 people at it. If you know the names of the people in your core, you ask them how their spiritual life is growing. How's their soul? How are they growing in the Lord? Are they reading their Bible? Are they spending time in prayer? And helping one another along with just one-on-one relationship that is equal to or more important than a crusade in which 75,000 people are filling an arena. Cool. All right, we have 2 left. Let's move to our current national commander.
Matt, do not do this to me. Hold on, I'm gonna have to do the maths.
Commissioner Kenneth Hodder. Commissioner Hodder. Yes, sir, it's right. If you get this wrong, we'll make Elizabeth go first.
Oh my gosh.
So if we get
Holy
this
moly.
wrong, because if we get this wrong, we might be moved. And that'll be at the end of the Battle Line podcast. So here we go. Elizabeth, take a stab. When is Commissioner Kenneth Hodder? What year was he born?
I'm going to say he's around the age of my parents.
Okay.
1960?
Oh, you are 2 years off. All right. Go ahead, Major Jamie. Up or down?
1958.
1958 is correct.
Hey,
All right.
that is the age of our parents. Oh, sorry,
Commissioner-
sorry, Commissioner.
Wow. We're going to move.
Yeah, both my dad and Matt's mom were born in 1958. Now, also sorry to our parents.
The zip tie was invented in 1958. The Salvation Army was still in 89 countries. Elvis Presley was drafted into the U.S. Army in 1958. The National Guard had to go to a little place called Central High School in Little Rock because of the desegregation of schools there. Alaska, there's going to be some guy out there who's going to call me on this. Alaska became a state on January 3rd, 1959, but all of the work was processed on 1958. So I'm going to say Alaska became a state at the end of 1958, but I know I'm going to get an email from that one person who's going to be like, you're wrong, Major. He was born in Alaska was 1959. So if that's you, I get it. Chill. We're cool. All right. A little thing called ramen was invented, packaged ramen.
Wait, like ramen the dish or just ramen
No
like
way.
you can get it in the store now?
The
Like
little
ramen,
cups?
like ramen you can get in the store now in the packet, not in the cup. In
The
packet.
the packages of ramen were invented.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It became available to the peoples.
Widespread availability.
And all the college changed forever in 1958.
Listen,
Here's
I'm pretty sure that my daughter subsists I would say a very considerable part of her diet is ramen, which is terrible, but she is addicted.
Here's an amazing stat that I found out. I would say that the Salvation Army, now this is my opinion, that the golden age of the Salvation Army in the United States of America might have been the 1950s. And not just the Salvation Army, but church in general, because half of Americans went to church on a Sunday in the 1950s. 1 out of every 2 Americans living in this country in the 1950s went to church on a Sunday. It was something that was expected. And maybe I shouldn't say golden age, but let me ask you this. Do you think that we pine for the good old days? Do you think that that's maybe what the church gets a little frustrated about? Because we remember 1 out of every 2 Americans went. And now that number, I don't know what that number is today. I would dare say it's probably 1 out of 5 maybe Americans go to church on a Sunday.
I have 2 things to say about this. One,
go.
Just because they were the good old days for some people doesn't mean they were the good old days for all the people.
Nailed it.
Which is why we are saying in the same year we were having desegregation in school. We should never have had to have that because it should have been happening all along.
Saying that again for the people in the back.
Never should have been subjugation of people. So, just kindly remember, it may have been good for your peoples, but that doesn't mean it was good for all the peoples.
Nailed it. Keep going. And your second point.
Yeah, the second point is just because people go to church doesn't mean they're right with God. So it may be good for the business of church sounds bad. It may be good for for
the numbers,
for the church, not as a people, but as an organization. It may have been good for them, but that doesn't mean everything like that all the people who were participating were doing the things they should have been doing. Hence why there was so much trouble.
Major Jamie spitting fire. That right there was worth the whole price of the episode. Elizabeth, you can edit everything else out.
Okay.
Just leave.
That's it.
This one part.
All right. Last one. This is not a person. This is a country. All right.
Gosh, Matt. This isn't even hard. At least with the people, I have a frame of reference.
Last question. For our people at home, take a guess. When, and don't Google it.
I am Googling it.
When did the Salvation Army begin the work in the country of Greenland? When did the Salvation Army begin work in the country of Greenland? Who wants to guess?
I'll guess. I won't cheat.
Go for it.
I'm going to go with 1972.
Good guess.
Nowhere
Major
close.
Jamie? Nowhere close, sorry.
Later, right?
It's in this
recently.
century.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
2012.
It is in the same century that we're in. Sorry. You cheat so bad.
I was only 50 years off.
You're
40 years?
40 years off, somewhere around there. That's okay. Yes, 2012. Supposedly, so the army in Greenland is 9 years old.
Wow.
This year. Major Jamie,
younger than my children.
You spit that fire at us on the last one, and then you cheated, but that's okay. In 2012, a little thing called The Hunger Games debuted in theaters. A little movie called The Avengers debuted in 2012. The Rock defeated John Cena at WrestleMania. That shows how much has happened in 9 years. They were still wrestling. They weren't acting. Disney.
When's the last time? Is that the last time that The Rock was in a wrestling ring?
Disney bought Star Wars that year for $4 billion.
What a great year for pop culture.
And last thing, I don't know if you guys noticed, but the world ended in 2012 because remember that was when we had the whole. I have no idea what you're talking about. Go for it. What is that? I
think it's a song. I'm almost sure that Jay Sean had a song called 2012.
Well, 2012 was when the world was supposed to end because remember the Mayan calendar was supposed to run out.
Listen, we have so many of those I can't remember anymore. Y2K, Mayan calendar.
Yes, it ain't the end. Featuring Nicki Minaj.
Okay, there you go. Well, you're right, Elizabeth. It is not the end because we are still here.
We are. So does that mean we're living in some kind of apocalyptic society? It sure feel like it.
Like filled future.
So last talking point here about 2012 was in 2012 is when it came out in the survey that we had the goal, the church where half of American in the 50s were going to church every Sunday. In 2012, the statistics said we have the rapidly increase of the word nones, people who said they have no religious affiliation at all. They are atheists, they're agnostic. So it scared people. It scared the church to see how the rapidly increasing of the nuns, not N-U-N-S, but N-O-N-E-S. So thoughts on that? Thoughts on the rise of people saying they have no religious affiliation at any form?
Oh, I mean, I have lots of thoughts on it, but I think that, I don't think that we should be surprised by it. I think it gives us a good opportunity for introspection to see, what could be the causes of these things. There are a lot of things that are influencing and affecting this, but what are things that can be done? Are these things that are causing it? Are there things that we individually can do about them? In the Salvation Army, a couple years ago, we did a national youth survey that trying to figure out the state of youth in Salvation Army ministry. For years, we had thought that the drop-off level came at young adults, that young adults, once they graduated high school and went to college, that's where the decline was. And it is true, there is a decline there, but there's a much more significant decline that happens early, the middle school years, when a kid goes from elementary to middle school. So there are a lot of things. It was a great report to look at it and realize, okay, there's something going on here that we didn't see. So what can we do about it? So I think it's important for us to evaluate, to look and see what is causing this leaving of the church, whether it's middle school, whether it's young adults, whether it's young families, and to see, okay, is there something in me that's participating in that? Are there things that I can do to help prevent that? Are there changes that I can help make? Am I part of systems that help facilitate an exodus? If so, how can I help change the systems? But we shouldn't be surprised. The Bible talks about it, so we shouldn't be surprised that it's happening. But just because we know that it's going to happen doesn't mean that we should just sit by and watch as people are lost. There's still work for us to do. Let's not look at it as, all negative. It is negative, but let's look at it as an opportunity for us to participate in God's story.
For sure. I think that's a great way to look at it, Major Jamie, and that'll be a good way to end this, is that these are all opportunities. These are all opportunities. All throughout the history we've seen here, there's some things that are happening in the church that have been highs, there have some that have been lows, but it's always an opportunity. God does not change, and he has given us the privilege of speaking his word. He has committed to us the message of reconciliation. And so we just keep speaking that, and we do what we can, and it's an opportunity. It's a privilege and an opportunity to do this work.
Yeah, and I think it's important to realize that you can make a difference in your own individual life. All these people that we talked about today, they're not like famous in the world. They're pretty substantial names in the Salvation Army. But each of them had a role to play, in changing the world in some way. You have William and Catherine Booth, who founded the Salvation Army and, are able now, all these years, 156 years later, are helping millions of people every year with food and clothing. All that came from the vision of these two people who loved God and had a heart for humanity. Same thing, Samuel Logan Brangle, who taught so much about holiness. He was just one guy. That's just one guy. Participating in the holiness movement has so much impact and influence on salvationists across the world. You got the current general, our current national commander, whoever decided that they were going to plant the flag in Greenland. These are just one person who, listened to the voice of God and was obedient to what God was doing in their lives. And they had some role to play in changing the fabric of society. So, again, let's just take a look at, what's going on. What are the problems? That's how the Salvation Army started. William Booth, Catherine Booth, they saw a problem. They're like, okay, well, we can help fix it. There are lots of problems happening in the world today. Lots of them. So what can we do? You, one person can make a difference. Change the world.
A lot of this stuff. Oh, sorry, Elizabeth, did you?
Oh, I was just champion support.
Fist pumping me.
Gassing up,
Yes.
Major Jamie. A lot of this information today came out of the Salvation Army Yearbook. If you don't have a Salvation Army Yearbook, you should get one. It's a great piece of information, great resource for you that we have. So my last question comes from this, a bonus question I didn't tell you about. You ready for this? If you get this, I'll give you a shiny packet of ramen from 1958. There it is. The Salvation Army Yearbook says, and it's chronology, when was the first youth councils held? What year do you feel the first youth councils was held? Major Jamie, you think you know the answer.
How fast can my computer work? Not because I'm Googling it, but because we did a timeline on this in Peer Magazine, and I'm pretty sure that the first youth councils was on that list. The question is, where did I say that list?
Here we go. Take a guess.
18.
The first two numbers are correct.
87.
Oh, so close. Within a decade. Elizabeth?
1896.
1897.
Oh, you're so close, Elizabeth.
Yeah, so close.
I'm going to have to go back and look at my notes. I'm pretty sure that was on that timeline, or at least was on part of some of the dates that were used to create that timeline.
The first united youth councils where multiple corps got together to have youth councils was 1897. I know a lot of our listeners are out there looking forward to youth councils coming back. Hopefully, it should be coming back for everybody, hopefully in 2022.
Yeah, some people just got finished with one. So that's
for
great.
sure. In person. So, all right, Major Jamie, you want to ask us our last question of the day?
Yes. So as always, our question of the week, question of the episode, what is bringing you joy? You want to go first today, Matt?
Yeah, the Atlanta Braves are in the World Series. Now, at the time of this recording, it's tied 1-1, but I am an Atlanta Braves fan. I cheer for Atlanta in the other sports as well, but there's not much to cheer for there. Sorry, my Falcons, but man, geez Louise. But the Atlanta Braves, I remember sitting as a 12-year-old boy in my family's living room, staying up late. I got to stay up late to watch the Atlanta Braves win the World Series in 1995. And it's just been a drought since then. That was before you were born, Elizabeth.
I was going to say, what kind of year was that?
So, gosh, that's terrible.
Holy moly.
So, all right. So that's my thing that's giving me joy. The Atlanta Braves are in the World Series. I'm hoping this year, been praying, God is on my side, that the Atlanta Braves could defeat the Houston Astros.
We've already established that the Houston Astros are dirty cheaters, and so I'm pretty sure that's not okay with Jesus.
All right. Elizabeth, how about you? What's giving you joy?
Okay. Last time I talked about the hometown cha-cha-cha, and that has just launched my love of K-dramas. I am so invested. It is my hobby.
K-dramas are like, I didn't even know this was a subgenre, but these things are like spreading quick. Oh
now, I have to admit, I'm not, like I said, not the Squid Game stuff. I'm looking at the good material on the Netflix.
Shots at Squid Game right there. But yes, K-pop is so popular in the Salvation Army in the United States. I mean, oh my gosh. And now you have K-drama. What is with like Americans? We are just our love with Korea.
It's fun to see like how there are just waves in pop culture, and it's Korea's moment. Go ahead, live your best life, South Korea.
My boyfriend's about to wear a plaid suit and turtleneck every day of his life now. It's all the rage.
Okay, I'm going to need you to post pictures. They can be our little picture on our little battle line.
So rad. Podcast. Yes.
Listen, though, those dramas and that pop music from Azerbaijan slaps. You have no idea how amazing that is. I need another country. Let me say it again. Those dramas and those pop music that comes out of Mongolia, that pop.
Pop.
Hanson comes out of Mongolia. That stuff slaps. Oh. All right, Major Jamie, what's giving you joy?
Well, right now, pop is giving me it's giving me
Mongolian pop music.
All right. What is giving me joy this week? What is giving me joy? This is not protecting the vibe at all. But what is giving me joy is modern medicine and good health insurance. This has been a rough couple of weeks in the for the Satterley children. But so I'm thankful for modern medicine and for good doctors, but also thankful that we have the huge blessing of having good health insurance. That is not true for all the peoples across America and all the peoples across the world. So again, let us see what we can do to make a difference in the lives of our fellow man.
All right. Elizabeth, Jamie, happy birthday. Thanks for sticking with me for a year.
Birthday.
Episode 26 in the books, 1 year.
That's a lot of shenanigans.
That's right. That's going to end this episode of the Battle Line podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the Battle Line wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, check out our sister podcast, Fight for Good. Major Jamie, Elizabeth, what's coming up on Fight for Good? Anything awesome?
Yeah, pretty soon we're going to be talking about the Dallas Cowboys. So this is the 25th National Red Kettle Kickoff Celebration happening on Thanksgiving Day. So the national commander had the opportunity to sit down with Charlotte Jones with the Dallas Cowboys. And so that's going to be coming up soon. You'll be able to hear that interview.
Awesome. Check out Fight for Good podcast. And also check out the Peer website at peermag.org or follow Peer on the socials at peer.magazine.
You should go check out peermag.org. There's a great timeline there looking back at Salvation Army history. It was in the December 2020 issue of Peer. And so you can find it there. And there's a great timeline. Some of the stuff we talked about today is on there, like the first youth councils. I knew it was on there. And all kinds of other fun stuff. So go check it out.
Until next time, this has been the Battle Line Podcast. Bye.
See ya.